So today, first of all, welcome. This is kind of outside of the norm schedule that I described earlier, that being the first Thursday of the month. But this one had to be changed because I was out of the office dealing with family things last week. Some of it was anticipated. That's why it was actually on the schedule. And the beginning of the week, there was some unanticipated stuff. So it was interesting, and I'm glad to be back to work. I'm Ruth Frazier. You all know that. Everybody in here, I think, knows that. Here's my contact information. I do tend to put my email address, but I also do have a phone number that you're welcome to contact me using. And that will be here, or you can email them and ask me for it too. So we're going to do a few things today that are all related to this topic, which is reports for catalogers. But prior to getting into that, I'm going to put this link over into chat. So this is for, obviously, a cataloging interest group topic questionnaire, because I can come up with things to talk about pretty ad nauseum all the time. I mean, if you meet me outside of work, I can talk forever about everything, which is kind of annoying, I'm sure. But I'd really think it's be more beneficial to all of you to help guide this, for you to guide what we talk about. So if you could, even now, take some time to think about things that you'd like to talk about. And I'm going to actually make sure that I get notifications. I'm going to show you all this too when those things come in here.
So I did order.
Everything's good there. I already had notifications set up. Yay. Okay. So there is that. And let's go forward with that. So one of the things that we've been talking about internally here at the admin level, and I've heard some things from catalogers around the state as well, having to do with getting sets of information to do things to them. And I know that some of our experienced and also some of our exploratory catalogers have done this, which that is running reports to do bibliographic database maintenance. But I do know that there are others who don't. And oftentimes the topic of reports is geared towards management and circulation, people who are gathering statistics, as opposed to having a really robust and quick to grab from data set just to do, and I say just to do, but to do maintenance on our database. So I want to go really briefly through the reporter to show you what is there. And this is not going to be a full reports training, but there are some templates that are already there, and just to show you what exists. And then to also show some things using the catalog and ways to utilize the catalog in conjunction with buckets to also do that. I know that some of you in here, this is old hat, but I do also know that because this is not something where we talk about specific types of searches in the catalog and then moving those things into buckets for maintenance as part of our core training, that some people know it because you figured it out and you do it, and other people just don't. So hopefully we can get to some, I don't know, I don't want to say some standard of this because it really depends on your workflows and the tasks that you have to do, but hopefully it will provide some value to you as you're going about whatever those tasks are, which do differ from library to library. So in the meantime, please keep in mind, you are welcome to turn on your microphone and ask a question if you prefer to communicate that way. You can throw questions into chat or comments, not just questions. If I say something wrong, which is likely that's going to happen in this hour, call me on it, because this is kind of training. It is, but you all are the catalogers, and you each have your set of competencies, and I do train cataloging, but I don't actually do it for a specific collection very often. And so I do look at the data set all the time, but that's another thing. Anyway, let's go forward with that. So the thing that I wanted to start here first was to actually go into the reporter, and you can access the reporter two ways, either from the original splash screen where it says reports, or from the administration menu. This is one of those things too where, and this is what it looks like. Yay, super pretty. This is one of those things that when I first started my tenure in Evergreen, Indiana, which was in 2008, reports were one of those things that was kind of locked down by permission. I'm not sure if it was actually a permission thing or it was just something that people said, this is something that somebody with local admin needs to do. And then there were some different permissions that were added, and some finagling and configuring in those early years. And I'm not sure when it changed to anybody that can log into Evergreen, Indiana can use the reporter, but it has. And so anybody can log into the reporter and can do all of the things there. So in terms of just the structure, there are three things that go into a report, into getting a set of data out of the reporter. You have your templates, your reports, and your output, and that's super tiny. And that looks super bad, so we'll call this the compromise. The templates are going to essentially define what types of data you are getting from the database. And I have a really poorly organized set of this. These are not bibliographic, but you can see that I have templates set up here. And if I wanted to create a report then, and I am going to select that and create a report. Which brings us to the next component, which is the actual report. And you can see how often I have weird looking reports because I do things for disparate libraries and kind of one-off things, except for in this case, this is a recurring report for them. And you can see some other things in here. A nice thing that has happened over the years, I'm not sure the exact year, is we now have the ability to edit reports. in this case, I could, well, this is a bad one because there's not actually parameters that I can change in this one. But I could potentially change that. I can change the notification email address, can change the recurrence if there is recurrence. In this case, there is not. So that is a nice feature that did not exist before. There, just a note for templates, you can't edit templates. If you want it to be different, you have to clone it. But that's, we can talk more about that in reports training. And then we have our output, and that's the stuff that, the information that we retrieve from the database. And then we can open that in Excel or something and format that a little bit. So we have those 3 different components. The thing that I want to show you today are the templates that are already constructed for getting information about the bibliographic database. And so they're mostly in this folder, and you're going to go to templates, admin, and then bibliographic records. That looks like it's a document, but it's actually a folder of things. This defaults to viewing 10 things. There are only 7 in here right now. Well, I'm not sure that this will be added to this specific one, but if there were more, I usually recommend that you change that to all to get a full list without having to page to the next list of 10. But you can see there are a few things in here. Some of these obviously are pretty deprecated. I'm not sure that anybody is using the Boopsy app anymore, but I could be completely wrong about that. I know it was a thing for a while and then it wasn't, and now we have an Evergreen Indiana app, so I'm not real sure. But there are a few things in here that you can select there. There are also, and it is worth going through some of these other things. For instance, collection might be something, and this is, and I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. I'm just going to say it how it comes to mind. This is an old library of stuff. I mean, the things have been added over the years, but it is like any library that could probably use a good weed. There is stuff from the beginning, and there is some other stuff. So the other thing, we have this admin folder, and all these shared folders are available to you. You can also look into, and yours may look differently too, because I've changed some of the settings on things. I can see a few things differently, but you can see that in each of these, there may be something else that you find useful in here. And so, for instance, let's say that, and I'm just seriously grabbing the first one on the list, you wanted to check all the series entries here. You would select that, create a new report, and name it. Apparently, I have a weird, sometimes it will retain the last report name that you did there. That doesn't seem like the last one for me, but who knows? I lose track pretty easily about those things. So you can run a report directly from the shared folders. You can fill in a template directly from there, or you could clone to a local folder those that you find that you like, but you do have to select a report folder, and that's not going to be, you can see here that this does not have a folder next to that. It's going to be your local reports folder. You will when you first go in here, you're going to need to set those up. We'll see. This does not have something where I can change it. It's just, this is what I want to see. I'm going to go ahead and do that. We'll see specifically what this is. Keep in mind that when you are running reports from the bibliographic record, it's not going to be necessarily specific to your library, because of course we share those bibliographic records. There are some ways to change that so that you're only looking or getting information for items that are in your location, and to access those bibliographic records, you may have to actually use more than one report, or you may find that buckets, which we'll talk about in a second, are an easier way to go. I'm just going to go here to my output. This is the folder that I selected for output. You can see that this is still pending, so it has not finished yet. So anything or questions, comments, whatever about using reports. Obviously, this is not a comprehensive reports training. More than anything is to say that this is a tool that you can use to gather information about things from the bibliographic database that you may want to use when you're doing maintenance of some type. It's taking longer than I expected to run this report. I'm curious what exactly it's going to show. This is why you probably shouldn't just pick a random report. Okay, there are no questions about that. I'm gonna actually leave there and come back, which is one of the nice things about here. I did have a notification email in there for me, but also I can go away to another interface, do whatever else I need to do if it's not running as quickly as I anticipated, which is the case right now, and then go back and check the status of that, which is still kind of hanging out there. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is this is kind of three things all wrapped into one. It is the experimental catalog, which is going to be the default staff catalog at the next upgrade, keeping in mind that it will no longer be experimental. It's not actually experimental now out in the real world, but our iteration of it was that first iteration. And there are a lot of things that Cat 1s can't really do with it unless you're just using the flat text editor, because you can't, the enhanced mark editor is not built out in this version. Also, and I'm going to do the advanced search is now called a keyword search, at least here. That is actually what I want. So, fun fact, yesterday I did a quick search of another catalog, and I was looking for Harry Potter. This is why I say that, because Harry Potter came up as one of the things saved in my search. But I mistakenly typed Harry Potty. There is a book called Harry Potty, and it is, I don't remember the subtitle, but of course it is a parody off of, it's a parody off of the Deathly Hallows. I think it's like the Deadly Boredom or something like that. It was kind of silly, but nonetheless, Harry Potty, it's a real thing. So the other thing about the experimental catalog that is not built out well, in my opinion, right now, is the holdings view. Did I pick an ebook? Oh my gosh, I did. I want something that actually has holdings. That's probably a better idea. Is that it comes uncollapsed in all of this, which just takes up a ton of screen real estate, which is bothersome to me. I'm sure it will not be the only one with that. I do believe in next iterations that this has been addressed, but there's that. But again, here we don't have the enhanced mark editor, just flat text. But that doesn't matter for this specific thing that I wanted to show you. One of the things that we pretty regularly hear about being projects has to do with reading levels. And I'm actually, that's what I want. And so I did some experiments this morning with this let's see if I closed all those down. Of course I did. As far as to make sure that, first of all, stemming was working and that, I believe it's B. One of the things I do like about the experimental catalog is what you just saw. It is way quicker than the traditional staff catalog. If you are just pulling in results like this, which is great. I mean, it should be even faster when we very imminently get server upgrades, just so you know, very imminently. So, and I did go and take a check. You can see this is probably, I would want to dial this in a little bit more. This is if I'm talking about a project to check for anything that has Lexile as a subfield B in the 521 and has a 7XX or whatever in the subfield A. And I'm looking at 5,700 records. I mean, there may be at some point somebody that wants to do that, but I probably want to dial this in just a little bit more than that. Possibly something like that. I mean, who knows? This is, again, this was an experimental thing. So we'll see if this gets a little bit closer. So I'm just going to do one record check and see what exactly that is showing up there. So, and this is actually why I was thinking about this, because while in the cataloging training, we talk about how the 521 needs to be used for Lexile information. Of course, there are other things that it can be used for, and then we use 526 for accelerated reader. There is still within that a lot of differentiation. So where in my mind that 7.2 stem was going to be anything, I mean, the only thing it really could be at that point is 720, but nonetheless, it didn't occur to me that there would actually be more here. And so this is something that I would be interested in as I'm looking at these records to see what those are. Are they still valid? This is still valid. But then also being able to use that, select however many, in this case, that is still a pretty big number, but more manageable. I'm going to actually clear that because I think I had one already in there. And then I can, from the baskets, add those to buckets. And I'm going to do that one. So you can do this with the traditional catalog as well. I just wanted to get some more exposure for the experimental catalog, since that's something that we will be going to. So then you can go back into record buckets. And I already had some stuff in here. And then you can go in and individually deal with this. One of the cool columns that is easier, much easier in my opinion, to get to through buckets than it is through the reporter is this overall record quality. And you can sort by that. And if you were going in to clean up records, then you could start at the lowest or however you want to do it. I mean, you're the one that is coming up with whatever these maintenance projects are. So yeah, I'm going to check back on that report real quick and see if it's actually like going to ever finish. Oh yeah. Before I click this button, I need you to know that I have zero idea what this is actually going to show us. So and it may not actually. Catherine asks, is there an overall record quality number that's ideal? Not that I know of. I just know that higher is better, and if there's something less than 100, it very likely needs to have work done to it. So this is a good time to say that the quality of the bibliographic database has improved so much over the years. I didn't spend a whole lot of time trying to find a bad record, but I did spend some time trying to find a bad record. Because I was just hoping that I would do a search and something bad would show up. And in the first like 3 searches that I came up, I didn't find anything that was really super terrible. Now, keeping in mind that I was doing those searches that I just did and those expert searches, and so that if people have taken the time to add reading levels to a MARC record, they've probably also taken the time to fix some other things. So I was necessarily looking at fairly quality records anyway. So now, as I'm playing around with that, I'm thinking now I really would like to do some other things where I know I'm going to find some lower quality records and go in there, which would be perhaps a title search or an author search for something fairly specific. Oh, lesson learned. I should never do that. There's always some title that's going to make it super, super long. So now I can, from this report, I see titles that have, or bibliographic records titles that have a series statement. And so, and I do believe that this is something that at least a couple catalogers in the consortium are working with actively to clean up some series statements within the catalog. So this would be a great starting point for that. And it has one of my favorite things, which is the record ID, because that gets you just about everywhere and gets you to the specific record quickly, which is nice. I'm very happy with this report. I'm going to close it though, so I don't go down a rabbit trail with it. So, any questions, comments right now? And I have a few more less training things, more announcement things to let you know. Or anything in terms of what you've been working on as far as cleaning up records in the catalog. Whether it be a big project or a small project or consortial or local or.
Hi, Ruth. This is Laura Brzeski from Morgan County, and we've been putting parts on all of our DVDs. And I've used the report several times, and because we are different locations, I found that I have to be at I have to be using, like, say I want to run a report from Waverly. If I'm not using the Waverly login and logging in as Waverly, the report doesn't come up with everything that I need to find.
So we've been talking about that locally here, administratively, and wondering if registering a workstation at the system level as opposed to at the branch level might alleviate that. I'm not entirely sure, because then that brings into mind shelving locations and how those are set up, as well as a couple other things. Yeah.
Well, we, because I'm the one that deals with a lot of the reports for Janet, who does actually most of the cataloging. And the issue was when she got that, I sent the help desk ticket, and then she, because I was gone for a few days, and then for her, and she got the response. And then, so I set up her response or her thing so she would be like at Monrovia, which was where she was having the problem. And, but the issue was nobody knows how to set one globally, because we asked Krista, the director, and she said she didn't have an idea. And I tried using the local admin password and everything to set up for a global one for just Morgan County Public Library itself, and it wouldn't let me do it. So
that's good to know. That's something the local admin is not letting you set up. It won't let you do a global one, but it should potentially let you do a system so that you could set up a workstation for Morgan County.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It wouldn't let me do it.
Okay.
I mean, not.
Yeah. It didn't give you the option.
Right. It didn't let me set one up for Morgan County Public Library. Just, you know.
I mean, that's probably good because there are some things that are defined by branch at some systems, most systems, but it is an annoying thing when you want to look at the entire collection, and you have parts of a collection at one branch and part at another. I will say I don't have an answer for that, other than to say it's something that we're actively talking about how we can help libraries manage that.
Basically, at my desk, I have every location in Morgan County set up as a registered
workstation.
So I can go from one to another. Janet had never had to do that because she's registered for Maine and had always been able to fix parts and everything from her location at Maine. But when I was dealing with running reports, I needed to be at each location to run reports. Otherwise you don't get all your information. So
no, you're 100% correct.
So, but anyway, just in case anybody else is out there trying to run a report that have more than one location.
Yeah. Laura has mentioned here that, or sorry, Laura.
I'm done.
Katie has mentioned here that she's been working on their manga section, adding the new term from our thesauri, which is manga, in there in the 655 and cleaning up the series. I'm reading through your comment, Monica. We have multiple locations and I run reports for our entire system from the main branch. And I think that it has to do with the way that the systems were set up, which was different from Jackson County being different from Morgan County as far as shelving locations, and there's some other thing that fusses around with it. And you log in, Monica, from using your Seymour workstation.
Yes, I only have a Seymour workstation, and I don't have what Laura has, where she has all the different things. But I think you might be right about the setup thing, because I know that we use the same shelving locations across all 4 of our locations.
And is your Seymour library the owning library for everything?
I'm sorry?
Is the Seymour branch
No.
the owning library with a
No.
different circulation library for?
No, they have the other locations are the circ and the owning library for the item. But like I said, when we were set up so that we have the same shelving locations at all of our locations. And I think that from what I've heard in the past, I think that that is not how it's done at all libraries that have multiple branches.
That's correct. It is not done like that at all. At all
so
of
that's
them, yeah.
that might be why it works for me and it doesn't for Laura.
Yeah, because you have access to all the shelving locations just at that one, at your branch workstation.
Right.
So, and this is kind of one of, well, it definitely is one of those things. I don't want to say that it's an idiosyncrasy, but maybe it is, of software in general, that it's just always hyper specific, and it may look like it is intuitive, but it's not. I mean, it does exactly what it's been told to do. And we often have, and I'm referring to my own self, knowing that I am not unique in this, the expectation that it's going to make up for what I lack in intelligence. And it's not. It is not actually smarter than us. It has been created by and for and updated with the help of humans. And so, and all of you people in this room are competent humans. And so it was the same kind of people that made Evergreen. I'm thinking, I could never do that. Oh, wait, I actually have friends who I think that I'm kind of on par with intellectually. I don't have the same skill set for sure, but, and they actually did build this. So I do. Yeah. So all that to say that the organizational unit structure causes idiosyncrasies or unexpected behavior sometimes. And Katie, I do want to say I'm really impressed with that. I mean, that was a pretty recent decision by the cataloging committee to add that genre in there and going in and updating all those records. That warms my heart to see that really active maintenance of the database. Yay. I love Evergreen Indiana catalogers. I'm just saying. If you need cheerleaders at any point in your life, just say, hey, Ruth, what do you think about me? It will all be good. Except for that one person. No, just kidding. Anything else? Any other projects that you are considering? Laura, how is the parts project going for Morgan County?
We're pretty much done. We just have a few that didn't show up in reports, and Janet's trying to put those in.
Okay.
But whenever I run a report now, I'm not finding any that doesn't have all the parts in it, or we changed what needed to be fixed.
Are you using buckets to keep track of those things, or?
Actually, we're down. She's just got a physical list, because what she has found, what she's been doing is just going through the catalog and looking at our items and finding a few items that did not show up in the reports that didn't have. And the mini branches, Morgantown, Brooklyn, and Eminence, our collections is such that we rotate those.
Oh, okay.
So everything has to come in and get processed at the main location. And we found all the parts there for that. So we're able to see them on the screen. We put parts in. So I know that whenever we run across anything that got missed in the reports, but so it's, and Maine was the biggest work because they had the most items. And she's gone through those. And I've run a report twice now and have not found anything that needs to be fixed. So
have you noticed, and I suppose this would probably be anecdotal, it would have to be anecdotal at this point, a decrease in issues for holds placed on those items? Or like comments from your coworkers or anything? Or the other way, have you noticed things more complicated?
Well, there are some records for some items that we don't, I mean, that you just still have the unassigned, because there's some libraries out there that I'm sure it's just the fact that they just don't have the time to put the parts in on their, items. And it tends to be the same libraries a lot. So, it gets to the point where you don't want to contact them every time you run into one. You just fix your own and go on, because you just didn't have time to,
Right. Send another list or email to the listserv.
Yeah. So, and then there's a lot of times that somebody else had already been in the record and they had put in like all discs correctly with -DVD, and then didn't merge any of the other things, so you're merging and fixing all the other people's, too, when you're going through. But yeah, it's I'm kind of glad it's done, because I know ours then, I always tell my staff and our patrons to always look to see what Morgan County has theirs catalog like. So choose that if you want it soonest.
Right.
Instead of choosing something else. Because otherwise you're going to wait for it to come from another library if you choose it a different way. But yeah, it's been a long process, because I started working on this a year ago when we were down,
Well, and I'm gonna blame myself for a thing here. This is something that Anna was pretty good at shepherding, and honestly, I didn't have any clue of what her workflows were at all. And over the past few months, I've kind of discovered a little bit more and been able to like recreate what I think her thinking was. But in that meantime, a lot of you have been working on the parts project, but there hasn't been anybody really providing updates on the status of it, making sure that those who are not doing it know that it's important that they do actually do it. And so, and I don't think it's fair for Keith to, first of all, never having been somebody that cataloged, and also learning a whole new job and making a whole new job for himself, to expect him to know how to do that. And so this is not the first time that I've thought this needs to be something where I pick up the reins, at least for a while, until somebody else picks up the reins. So I will try to be better about that, because it is one of those things that it will work great when it is implemented across the consortium. In the meantime, there's some ambiguity. So I'm going to go back through here. Catherine Marshall said, creating standardized templates for the local history room and slowly standardizing all the items currently in it. When you say standardized templates, are you referring to what you expect to be in the MARC records? Or are you referring to holdings templates? A local holding template largely. That's really cool. First of all, I'm a huge lover of good holdings templates. We'll also be providing MARC guidance for the cataloger as well, hopefully. That's fantastic. Anytime somebody can get into the local history room and start making those records better, those holdings more discoverable, that is a worthy and sometimes thankless, but I'm going to thank you task, especially if you are wanting people to access it more. We're also working on series cleanup for both acquisitions, thank you, and cataloging purposes. Shout out to Anita, who's got the green posted today at Kendoville for her help on conjoined items. We have our own Westfield shelf. That's exciting. I don't know if today is the day to do that, but I would love to hear more about that collaboration between Westfield and Kendoville using the conjoined items. I don't know, maybe something to think about for the annual conference in August. Monica says perhaps the cataloging committee could put out another statement about the importance of using parts on movie. I think that would be lovely. That the entire statement that you used there. Okay. Is there a new part of the procedures guide for that now? So I'm going to say a thing about both the training manual and the procedures guide for cataloging. I have gotten probably 20 notifications in the past day about edits from various people. Number one, thank you for doing the work on that. Number two, I have not read them, so I don't know the answer to that. Anita, do you have something to say about anything related to the conjoined items?
I pulled up Shelley's records and was thrilled to see what she had added. That was really cool. So one comment about that, things that you link on conjoined items, even if you delete it from the catalog, does not unlink from the conjoined item. And I wanted to get back with Shelley and tell her that. So on our new, for example, on our new coming soon bookshelf, we will have, I'd say it may average 200 linked items on there that we've got coming, eventually they're coming and then they're going out. So when I pull up the item that I'm trying to add, we actually have the book in hand then. The first thing I do is go up to the barcode, the existing barcode, which is usually KPL and the ISBN number. And I'll put something in front of that or at the end of that to extend the length of that item that's linked on the conjoined record.
Mm-hmm.
So what that does for me is then I can go down through the conjoined items on the shelf MARC record and immediately see what needs to be unlinked to get them off. And so I'll add a week's worth of books, let's say. Try to get things on there Monday and Tuesday morning, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And then make sure that they are unlinked from the coming soon shelf, because now they're actually here.
That's cool. I love how you're using that.
We are the biggest benefiters from the shelf items, because the staff can find them quickly. They can see what's out, what's still on the shelf. They don't have to know the actual name of the item if it's things like the library things,
Mm-hmm.
because that could be any number of anything. It could have any name on it, but they
Right.
know it as something else. So looking for some of those things. Cake pans is another thing. We might have given it some other funky name that they're not able to find it in the catalog, but on the shelf, they can immediately see the total list of some of these strange
Exactly.
things.
Yeah.
What are some of the other cautions?
It's just a really elegant way to make things discoverable in the way that people look for things.
It started when I saw all kinds of bags behind the adult reference shelf that were book club bags,
Mm-hmm.
and they were missing a book or two or five,
Mm-hmm.
and that made that a broken kit.
Right.
None of those books could circulate.
Because they were
Meanwhile,
missing. Yeah.
the adult reference librarian is getting overloaded with, it's totally useless.
Yeah,
It's
just
important
sitting there
real
in the
estate for
way.
the shelf,
Right.
and they can't circulate it, and they may never get that book
Right.
to fill the book club kit. And that's not a unique thing,
No, not at all.
having broken kits.
Yeah.
So I decided, I think we were handling that in an archaic manner. Book club, there is already a very good MARC record for the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to recreate a MARC record to say specifically our library had a kit of 10 books.
Mm-hmm.
The Evergreen Library decided that people could check out multiple items of the same. So that changed. Early on, you could get one on hold, and
Right.
you're out of luck. And we also are scanning barcodes now instead of typing out every one of the barcodes or writing, handwriting.
Right.
So why not check in and check out all of the barcodes for all of the books that they're transiting throughout Indiana anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that scanned the barcode would know where it needed to go.
Right.
The other problem with the creating a kit and doing the sets routine was that they limited you to 2 sets. So people could only put 2 sets
Yeah.
on hold. And it's like, why are we having these books just sitting around here on our shelves anyway?
Right.
If somebody wants them, get them out there. So we decided that we would do that. And as I was creating that idea, I thought, well, why don't we just have this virtual book club shelf, something that would list all of the books that we have on our virtual book club shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And it morphed from there, because at that point, to conjoin, they needed to have a specific item. I wanted it to say that it was a book club kit. I didn't want them to be able to put the item on hold that was conjoined.
Mm-hmm.
If they want an entire kit in a bag, they can call the reference librarian. So there were a lot of things that were worked out to create basically a dummy call number with an asterisk to keep it up at the top.
Yeah.
And the staff needed to be able to find it, to pull it. It's on the book club shelf, and it's got a number instead of just book club, Richardson or something. So we had to number all of them still. But if they go missing, then we have a price for that one that has gone missing,
as opposed to the entire kit.
The
Yeah.
entire kit is not broken anymore.
Right.
And then that kind of morphed to, okay, there's a lot of kinds of things that the staff are having difficulty finding. Possibly the patrons are having difficulty finding.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's in a total list like that, they can immediately see, oh yes, that's it. That's what I want right there. They can click on that, get to that item, and then place it on hold.
Well, it provides some flexibility that the traditional catalog, the traditional ILS doesn't really, and traditional library structure and catalog structure doesn't, it fills a gap of flexibility in there that allows you to create a way for people to search the way that they search for stuff.
Well, we were also going to get a circulation count for each item instead of one kit.
Right. Yeah. So, and that has been, I guess, a philosophical thing where I've gone both ways. It's like, so does that mean somebody's reading all of those? Well, maybe. Should they get a circulation for each item? Well, now I'm at the point I'm like, yeah, they should. They should get a circulation for each of those things because they're distinct things that have been conjoined. So,
and whatever is local for the transiting, that's what it's going to,
right.
That's what it's going to pick up anyway. If it's our book, it's our book. And if it's something down in Southern Indiana, it's going to pull the ones from Southern Indiana because they can put more than one of those on hold.
Right. I'm going to thank you. I am highly encouraging you to potentially submit a presentation for conjoined items for the annual conference, and because I think that it would be highly beneficial for other libraries looking for ways to do exactly or similar to the things that you did. I remember at Union County, the office space that I had right before I went on to my next job was kind of in this pass-through area, I guess. I mean, it was semi-private, but it had a bunch of cabinets, and the cabinets were packed full of book club books. And we could never really figure out how to make those accessible without going through a whole rigmarole. And that would have alleviated all of that. I mean, having them cataloged in that way. And it's also a great collaboration between circulation and between the.
Well, I think that Evergreen changing a few things has made that more possible.
Yeah.
To
policy
check them out
wise
individually.
Yeah. Let me see what else we've got in here.
I think getting feedback from Shelley to see how it works at their library will be key to know if it helps anybody else.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
If there needs to be a presentation.
Westfield shelf. I love that. Okay. Definitely a long haul project. Okay. Awesome. Well, that is what I have for today. If there are anything else, I'm going to go ahead and share this again real quickly because I have a couple announcements on there. We do have a cataloging committee meeting coming up on what would be this meeting date in June. So it's going to be on the 3rd of June at 9 Central Time, 10 Eastern Time. That one is going to still be a virtual meeting. I believe that the one following that will likely be in person with the option to attend virtually. We're still waiting on some clarification from the state on what those rules are. And then the next cataloging interest group will be on Thursday, July the 1st at the same time. So